I figured it was about time to do an updated version of this video since the last one was about 5-6 years ago, and it was a little more important. Other stuff has come up since then, like we've had a few elections since then, and other comments have come out about the issue of how can conservatives possibly be Star Trek fans? Don't they know the show has always been leftist liberal thing? Okay. First, let's tackle one thing: the misunderstanding of conservatives and what, because Brian Fuller made the go. Well, they like it because the fascist issue is Starfleet. Brian, fuck you. You clearly don't have any conservative friends. That's not what draws us to Star Trek. Thing to keep in mind: Roddenberry set up Star Trek in the universe. It's a post-scarcity environment. The replicators and fusion power and matter, antimatter stuff, there is no more material needs. They've all been met. Anything you want with a push of the button. Power is pretty much unlimited and free. So people aren't having to fight over resources so much. You know? Money is meaningless. You do it for other reasons. Like, the Orville actually did a better explanation of it than Star Trek ever did. But they put it simply: your social standing type of thing, and you work to better yourself. You're no longer beholden to try, get ahead and claw the money and beat the other guy and something. You actually work on yourself. Because that's something that Roddenberry observed. When you have all the needs met, and you're out of the thing, you get the money, so you work on bettering yourself. And I think, right or wrong, if that should be applied across society, where it's like we can get past this thing over having to do all this crap. And in that respect, and one thing that also Star Trek maintained is a strong sense of right and wrong. You don't have the cultural moral relativism in that some people say, no, Star Trek was not just anything goes. That's where a lot of the conflicts come in when Kirk supposedly breaks the Prime Directive, because there's some things that are just demonstrably wrong. And that is where Star Trek came down. And again, it was never the politics of the day. Yes, everyone on that set, from Roddenberry on down to the guy who swept up the stages acting like, was against the Vietnam War. But in the episode of Private Little War, the closest they ever had to directly commentating, they said the brush wars of the 20th century. That's the closest thing you ever saw to an actual direct reference to Vietnam. And Kirk is actually arguing in favor of U.S. engagement, really. Talking about how they can't just pull out, but they also can't give the South Vietnamese nukes. Like if they arm their South and overwhelming thing, we never tried to travel space if they did that. And arguing, it's like, no, we have to be, and to maintain a balance of power, to keep the other side from going roughshod. You got to keep everything at bay and keep it in balance. It's the dirtiest, trickiest game of them all, but it's the only one that preserves both sides. And remember that Roddenberry is coming from a part, he was a bomber pilot in the war. Bob Justman was in the Navy, and Gene Kuhn was an officer in the Marine Corps in World War II in Korea. Several of the cast members were veterans themselves. Jimmy Doohan was a hero on D-Day, when the Canadian forces went on. D. Kelly and Leonard Nimoy were both in the Army. I think they were stateside doing training films, but still they served. I think Walter Koenig, was in an ROTC thing for one. So all through that thing, there are veterans. So it was just, the military discipline was just baked into it. Nobody had to. They didn't need any military advisors on that show for how a military organization worked. They knew it, and they ran that ship. They ran that ship the way a ship would be run. And that's kind of something with the Shatner talking about going back, and it's like the discipline was there. Gene Roddenberry, that's why I said Roddenberry would be spinning his grave if he saw the current stuff, because they have no clue how things work on a military vessel. But the appeal is not any kind of fascist exciting, but when you don't know what the hell fascism is, if that's your assessment. That is not fascism. Just even think anything, regarding any kind of authority, it's fascist, Not a good legacy from the 60s. It's basically, this is what society can be if you leave people alone. That's the heart of center-right and conservative thought. Just leave people alone to let them do what they can do. And Star Trek presents a world where you have that. People are largely left alone. You're no longer forced into a job you hate because that's the only one that pays. No, you're able to do what you want, what you feel you can do. Like if it wasn't, stuck with doing stuff I have to do, I would be running my own radio station, just because that's what I want to do. I like radio. I like to spend the music, making commentary. That's why I'm doing this channel too. I like doing this. If I can get paid for it, I should also throw this up here too. Because again, I'm not doing this for my health. But that is really the big thing with. It shows you where there's still points where no, that is wrong. This should not be happening. Like there's a new level of your planet rules, but no, this is just fundamentally wrong. Your people need to be free to do the and that is where you get things where no. You're not taking my ship out of orbit just because you can preserve little Garden of Eden, but nobody does anything because they're keeping a population control of nothing. Now that was the only the one case of close thing to a direct violation of the Prime Directive Kirk really did was the Apple. But I think they're if they're able to reach out and grab a starship out of orbit, that means you're no longer just a local thing. You're not just mentally. This planet and these systems are now a threat to other ships that wander by. I think there had been, I have to check that up. I think there may have been a reference to something going on. That's why they were there in the first place. Or like, A Taste of Armageddon. People kind of forget the opening log entries where this thing, they'd lost several ships in that sector due to whatever the hell's going on, if they're piracy or something or other, and they needed that base. So they had been some contact where they knew a lot about the planet, so there'd been some contact out there. So the Prime Directive really wasn't that much in force. But it's like, when Kirk, no, the war ends now. This is wrong. Okay, And that's where a lot, it came down on. And then, that thing, we can respect that. Things, they get very egregiously wrong things. You don't get bogged down the legalities and the, technicalities of stuff. You just, no, this stops. And that's what I think you're going to see a lot of coming up in the next few years, by the way, from Trump and his thing. You're going to see, no, this is wrong. It stops now. Even say, with the current thing, again, this is going well, but currently we got a thing where the Ukrainian-Russian situation has gotten very bad because some other brat idea does authorize use of those weapons that we've given to Ukraine. Yeah, go ahead and fire them into Russia. And it's like, no, do not do that. Like someone that's invested in starting World War III before Trump gets sworn in. And so it's like, Trump's got, no, not happening. Or that's off into the weeds, and that'll be irrelevant in 6 months anyway. But no, that's why, why you have conservative Trekkies, because there is still, at least in classic Star Trek, there's still a sense of right and wrong and things that that do not happen without a fight. and it's a world where you are finally left alone to do what you want for the most part. As long as you're not hurting somebody, and if you're working to really improve yourself and make the world better around you, go for it. That is the heart of real conservatism. Just let people do what they do. It's like rising tide, lifts all boats. It's like when it kind of dovetails into in the Ayn Rand's thing of determination, or whatever they call it, where it's like look out for your own best interests and take care of yourself, and you'll find the world around you tends to get better as a result. You're not dragging anybody down. Your result is you tend to bring people up along with you. You're able to, fix things out, and you're able to go out and help others. What you do for yourself will benefit the world around you. Well, you don't have meddlesome policies and stuff where the people government coming and telling you how to live. I don't think so. That is not, again, that is also where Roddenberry was. No, that's not the Federation that I set up. This isn't the Star Trek universe I set up. Or some heavy-headed faraway government on a distant planet is telling how you should live. No, that is not Star Trek. It has never been Star Trek. That's why I said, when Shannon to shoot back something. Yeah, Roddenberry was a leftist. He was not woke. He was not a far left libtard type thing. His big thing was the old style of let people alone. Let them find out what they're good at and let them do it. So hopefully that will answer the questions of why we're in the midst, and more than you think. And why this whole thing is, how can you pick? You don't know anything about. I know plenty about it, all right? I've been steeped in it. I was 2.5 years old when the show premiered. It's been a part of my life. I don't have a first experience with Star Trek. And I found it. No, it's always been there. It's been a part of my DNA from almost from the beginning. Like I said, even when the first thing I watched, that I recall watching, was the animated series. But even then, I knew this wasn't the original. I knew there was a live action show before. Didn't have any. Well, I had caught pieces of reruns a few years before on local stations, but again, it wasn't a Discovery thing. I knew it was Star Trek. We got my first Enterprise model in the store. There wasn't no, oh, what's that? Oh, it's the Enterprise. Get it. It was just ingrained, part of my, things, okay, that's Mom, that's Dad, that's Star Trek. It was there, So, any questions about, again, then you'll find, I just found a lot of these people, how can you possibly, well, you clearly don't have any conservative friends, do you? Let alone any conservative Star Trek friends, So that's kind of, why I had this one made up. So, again, any questions, ask. Not necessarily me, but any, somebody who is a conservative and a Star Trek fan, you'll find plenty of them. We'll happily talk about it, but not if you're going to be browbeating us and tell us to go fuck ourselves because we dared to vote for the evil orange man. Because, part of the whole thing of, again, the way Star Trek is, you have to be able to sit down and talk to the other side. It's a mantra now. Star Trek never, Star Trek wanted you to think. It didn't tell you how to think. Not until the new batch came along. Before that, it was like, they definitely had a point of view. but it presented both sides pretty fairly, and you had to make up your own mind. And but again, there was no Star Trek analog to LBJ or Nixon. That was all for the stories were really more morality plays. It wasn't limited to just the Vietnam War. It was talking about war in general. Or economic inequalities. It wasn't, bogged down to capitalism. It was bogged to just what is a fair way to do things here, Where's somewhere where everybody wins? Star Trek, like Rob Burnett said a lot. Star Trek, you didn't have villains or enemies. You had antagonists, which is a different thing. This, they're not evil people necessarily. They have a different point of view here. They're going from a different direction. If we understand that direction, maybe we can come to some kind of understanding here. But they weren't bad guys to be wiped out. Okay. So, with that, like, share, subscribe, PayPal, Patreon, other links down below, and we will talk at you later.